Hiya, Honest Discussioner here. How you doing? In the last video, I kind of called out someone who I didn't exactly have a lot of respect for. I thought his methods and his behavior really wasn't exemplary on any level. And I want to intellectually kick his ass, but he's a bit busy with studies, he says, so that looks like that's not going to happen. So in the meantime, I'm going to do something I've wanted to do for a long time, and that's hopefully intellectually kick the ass of someone else, but for completely different reasons. This one because he's so awesome. That is UNFF Wildcard. If you haven't heard of him or you're not subscribed, I would recommend checking his channel out. He is a Catholic from Canada, and I have to say no theist has ever made me think like he has. He's really, really good. He knows a lot about science, probably more than I do. Okay, definitely more than I do. And he's just, I have never heard an ounce of bull from him. And I've known him for, since back in November, I think. So it's been a while, and he's just a nice guy and very fair, and yeah. But I put up my philosophical proofs a while back, and he thought the videos were good, but he really wanted to defeat the idea that God's omniscience and omnipotence is a paradox with free will. And he's trying to do that right now with this series. And unfortunately, Wildcard, I think you have kind of handed me the argument on a silver platter here with your latest series. Not that it wasn't a good series or anything, but I think your conclusions don't exactly follow from the topic that you're talking about here. Now, Wildcard, the first part of his series, discussed how particles are random, at least the smaller versions of them, the photons. They can move in random and unpredictable ways. Now, I mentioned to him before that a random particles doesn't mean free will. It, at the best, means random. Well, and he agreed, but he says it at the very least destroys determinism. Possibly, but I don't. It doesn't. I'll get to that a little bit later. But now his second part of his series, God and Cosmology 2, was talking about, basically you have a guy named, I think he called him Tom, and he has a choice between an apple and an orange. And he posits that even if you were to send the information of recording him choosing the apple or an orange back to someone in the past, that would not take away Tom's free will. Because even if you change something, that he basically says that a timeline can only exist one way. You can't change a timeline and then have the other timeline not exist. The timeline is completely standard and it cannot be changed. And he talks about how God doesn't predict anything, he post-dicts it, basically. Since God's outside of space and time, he is able to talk about what happens after the event and kind of send it back in time. Now, I kind of think that if you do that, that's going to change the outcome, but that's not exactly what I'm going to argue here. I'm going to kind of have to mention, Wildcard, that your premise negates the idea that God has what's called middle knowledge, that God doesn't know any ifs as far as reality. What would happen if this happened? What would happen if he did this? You mentioned that God might very well influence reality, but if he influences it, he knows the outcome of the influence beforehand, and thereby he doesn't take away any free will. I think that's exactly the opposite. By knowing the outcome beforehand and acting in that manner, it's just as though writing a book, basically. What you're kind of arguing is that someone writes a book, but the characters that they write have free will. They don't. God's actions, the way that he goes about doing things, affects reality. I mean, unless you're taking away God's free will, because what I do will affect the future greatly. Now, if I go back into time each time I do something, let's say that I go to Tom, who's going to choose between the apple and the orange. So, and he chooses the apple. Now, let's say there's 100 different things he can choose from: apples, blueberries, all of that. Now, I go back into time each time that he chooses something, and I see all of the different possibilities that I could do. In one possibility, I punch him in the face. In one, I say hi. In one, I tell him that blueberries are poisoned. And I do everything that I possibly could do in almost a near infinite amount of actions. And I know it will happen each time. And you might argue that your probabilistic universe with the randomness might negate that, but in such a small time frame, I don't think you're necessarily right. And then again, if you argue that, you're still going back to the random will part, but we're getting sidetracked. If I were to do that, and I would know the general outcome of each of any action that I did, then I am determining the outcome of the event. And this is what God should be capable of. He should have the middle knowledge. He should know whenever God acted, whenever he did anything, he should know what would have happened if he didn't do that. And also, if you go back, and I know you said you're going to handle this in your next series, I'm interested in how, but he not only set the universe in motion, but he created the very essence of who we are, according to you. And I don't think it would really follow that we would have free will under even your own guidelines. So that's basically what I'm arguing here. I wanted to also mention the thing we talked about on stickam the other week with the feeling of spiritual and physical things, but I'll have to save that for another video because I really want to handle this free will thing, and I've been waiting for, I think, 10 months now to get to this. So I'm sure we'll talk about this in the comment section. You know I love you, man, and have a nice day. Honest Discussioner, out.